Tonight on NewsWatch, Al-Qaeda at it again. The CIA foils a bomb plot, but the threat to American lives is not over yet.
Plus, a new coalition in Israel. Could it prevent a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities?
And war games in the Pacific. Why Christians in the Philippines are now praying for peace with China. All this and much more tonight on NewsWatch. An al-Qaeda plot is disrupted, but authorities are still very concerned. Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith.
And I'm Lee Webb. Anti-terror experts spent the day examining al-Qaeda's latest bomb. It's an updated version of the underwear bomb, and officials are trying to find out if it could slip past even our best airport technology. The CIA foiled this plot, but the U.S. is worried that al-Qaeda is plotting another one. Al-Qaeda's top bomb maker is still at large, and the threat far from over.
It's a reminder, Al-Qaeda still has its sights set on the U.S., this time with a new, more sophisticated bomb, one intended to slip past airport security and take down a U.S.-bound commercial airplane.
We're dealing with a dynamic adversary here, so they're going to try to always identify the vulnerabilities and the workarounds in our own system.
U.S. officials say the bomb was confiscated after the CIA unraveled the terror plot. The plot involved an upgrade of the underwear bomb that failed to detonate on Christmas 2009, and it was planned for the anniversary of the killing of Osama bin Laden. The would-be suicide bomber was based in Yemen. Officials say he had not yet picked a target or bought a ticket when the CIA stepped in. Al-Qaeda's bomb maker Ibrahim al-Asiri is said to be the mastermind of the plot. He is still at large, but known to be operating out of Yemen. Officials say Al-Qaeda still seeks to avenge bin Laden's death. A far different story from a few weeks ago, when the National Journal quoted a State Department official saying the war on terror was over.
This incident makes clear is that this country has to continue to remain vigilant against those that would seek to attack this country.
These new bombs use a new detonation system, one without any metallic parts. Security experts say even the most sophisticated airport scanners may not have caught the devices. And another concern, it's unclear how many airports abroad even have the body scanner technology.
Keep in mind, this was overseas, so we also need to recognize that some of the same standards that may be in place in the United States may not be met in other countries.
U.S. officials say there are believed to be several other would-be suicide bombers with similar non-metallic devices out there. And Al-Qaeda's English-language magazine continues to call for attacks on the U.S., the most recent issue offering advice on how to start huge forest fires and carry out urban assassinations. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
And CBN News terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck spoke with Pat Robertson on today's 700 Club. He says although the U.S. has wiped out some of al-Qaeda leaders, the terror group is taking new territory and plotting new attacks.
Al-Qaeda has actually spread out geographically, and Pat, they actually cover more territory now than they did on 9/11. From Pakistan to Yemen, Somalia, North Africa, Sinai, right on Israel's borders, and Europe and Iraq. They're rearing their heads there again. Al-Qaeda now covers a wide range of geography, and this shift, as you said, Pat, has shifted from Pakistan to Yemen. That's where we're seeing the plots against the American homeland coming out of now. And there's a lot of Americans there in Yemen, American jihadis who have firsthand knowledge of the United States.
And to watch more of that entire interview, go to our website, cbnnews.com.
Al-Qaeda terrorists are not the only Middle East Muslims filled with hatred against America. A major new study reveals that radical Islamic views are running rampant in the social media of Saudi Arabia. Wahhabi Muslim clerics are using Facebook and other sites to push extreme anti-Western views. And joining us now with more on this story is Steve Miller of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Steve, you're co-author of this study. What does it tell us about Saudi views toward the West?
Well, over the course of 6 months, we collected huge amounts of data, and despite assurances from the Saudi government that they're clamping down on radical messages and embracing moderate Islam, we found that 75% of our content could be construed as xenophobic, bigoted, and hateful.
Well, you say that they claim that they're trying to counteract this radical Wahhabi belief. Why aren't we doing anything to hold their feet to the fire if they're not really doing this?
Well, you have to keep in mind that they have, in fact, clamped down on jihadist messages. Out of the data we found, only 5%, still openly called for radicalism. But we found it difficult to pressure the Saudis for, I'm unsure, why the U.S. government is really has been afraid to take steps against Saudi Arabia more seriously.
The obvious, the elephant in the room, I guess, would be Saudi's oil supplies. Is that your thinking as well?
It could be. I'm not an energy expert. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to see done about this?
Well, Washington has to, tread a careful line between, urging the Saudi government to accelerate its reforms, and of course keep social media free, while at the same time putting pressure on the Saudi government to make sure that they're clamping down on the most radical elements of the religious establishment that are now flocking to social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and others.
Steve, one quick question before I let you go. Was there one particular piece of social media content that really disturbed you and your colleagues as you put this report together?
Well, one of the big debates in Saudi Arabia over the last year was about Saudi women's right to drive. That happened last March. And now in December of 2011, an official committee of the Saudi religious establishment put together a report in which they claimed that if the Saudi driving ban on women was to be revoked, that it would then lead to a surge in prostitution, pornography, homosexuality, and that within 10 years of repealing that ban, there would be no more virgins.
Wow, interesting.
So,
well,
interesting, right?
Steve Miller, thank you for being with us and providing your insights on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Well, Senate Republicans stop a measure that would raise taxes to keep student loan interest rates low. The measure lost today by a vote of 52 to 45. On July 1st, interest rates are set to double if Washington doesn't act. Before today's vote, Democrats accused Republicans of caring more about the rich than about students. But Republican leaders say Democrats are trying to create campaign issues instead of addressing the nation's problems like skyrocketing debt. The House has already passed a bill to prevent the interest rate increase, but President Obama promises to veto that measure because of the way Republicans want to pay for it.
Former Republican presidential candidate Rick Santorum is endorsing Mitt Romney. Santorum and Romney were bitter rivals during the primary season, but Santorum sent an email Monday night late urging his supporters to back Romney. Santorum said that while he and Romney have had their differences, they also have many areas in which they agree. The most significant being their common goal to deny President Barack Obama a second term as president.
The Tea Party could shake up the GOP establishment in Indiana and Washington with its Senate primary. The candidate Richard Murdoch faces a tough fight in today's primary against incumbent Senator Richard Lugar. Both candidates say they have the support needed to win. However, political observers say it will be close. Murdoch's momentum started growing a few months ago. Outside groups helped his campaign buy ads, hitting Lugar's voting record and the lack of keeping a home in Indiana.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill getting ready to take up a measure to protect military men and women who disagree with homosexuality based on religious or moral beliefs. The measure is authored by Missouri Congressman Todd Akin. He told CBN News that there currently are not any laws to protect the conscience of military chaplains in the wake of last year's reversal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. His measure would not only cover chaplains, but all service members who object to the gay lifestyle.
There's pressure on them in terms of advancement. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, then you won't get a promotion, or you won't be allowed to do this, or you get a bad fitness report. So this is one of those things so that people can be faithful to the group that they came from, and it allows them, in a sense, an umbrella of protection.
Lawmakers will vote on the measure tomorrow as part of next year's defense funding bill.
North Carolina voters decide today whether to add a ban on same-sex marriage to their state constitution. The issue has sparked protests in the street. The state already has a law against gay marriage, but laws can be overturned more easily than constitutional amendments. Former President Bill Clinton has urged North Carolina voters to oppose the amendment. Evangelist Billy Graham and his son have come out in support of it.
I want you to take a stand for God's definition of marriage, and that's between a man and a woman.
North Carolina is the last southern state without a marriage amendment. Experts expect the measure to pass.
Turning overseas now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now called off early elections. He has formed a new coalition government, and that has implications for a possible Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. George Thomas has more.
By all accounts, it was a political stunner. At 2:30 this morning, just before Israel's parliament was set to dissolve to make way for an early election, a major deal is struck. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convinces his main political rival, Shaul Mofaz, and the opposition Kadima party to join him in forming Israel's broadest government in history. Mr. Netanyahu now gains an overwhelming majority, 94 seats in the 120-member parliament under the new unity government. Israelis in Jerusalem were reacting positively to the surprise news.
Honestly, I think it's for the benefit of the people, it's good for the economy, so we won't have less money. It was a nice drama.
But Netanyahu's majority has implications for a possible Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. You see, his new coalition partner, Shaul Mofaz, who now becomes deputy prime minister under the agreement, has spoken out against an Israeli strike. Netanyahu has promised serious and responsible talks about Iran's nuclear program. George Thomas, CBN News.
And joining us now with more is elections and Middle East analyst John Waggy, who spent several years reporting from our Jerusalem bureau. John, the big question on everyone's mind is how will this affect Israel's plans for a possible military strike against Iran?
Well, Wendy, it makes it a more even keel platform from which the prime minister can operate. Benjamin Netanyahu, back in 2009 when he was elected, wanted a unity government back then with the Kadima party under Tzipi Livni, and she refused. And now he has 28 more seats in the Knesset, so he's got the biggest majority in a Knesset ever for a prime minister. That's something you want entering an uncertain time of possible war. You don't want the distraction of an election, especially in Israel where 30 parties compete for television time, for media coverage, for voter allegiance. It is a circus, and Netanyahu didn't want that. It's interesting that President Shimon Peres thanked Netanyahu for having this secret deal and actually avoiding an election at this point.
Well, as you pointed out, he was very popular, and he was favored to win if there was an election. So why form this new coalition now?
Well, I think that, you know, as analysts, we often look cynically at these elections and saying there's always a political motive behind the tree. In this case, I think he genuinely believes that Israel is facing an existential threat and that the country's survival is at stake with Iran coming closer and closer to developing a nuclear weapon. I think he looks around at Europe, looks around at the United States, and doesn't see a whole lot of support. And he decided that a unified front, the most common unified group of political coalition that he could get would be the best thing at this time.
Do you think he can keep this coalition together?
I think that there are going to be challenges, but he's got 94 seats out of 120 now. So if he loses a party of 10 or he loses a party of 13, he still has a pretty big working majority to deal with. So there are going to be struggles along the way, and I don't think he's going to have the media's help in Israel. They're not his friend, but I think that he's got a solid coalition at least probably till his next term in 2013, till this term ends.
All right, John Waggy, thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up later, the story of a woman who gives a whole new meaning to the inspiring the next generation.
If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, call now for a new pain-free meter. These new meters are more accurate, they're easier to use, and the best news is you don't have to prick your fingers anymore. Call now, and Arriva Medical will send you one of these new meters for free. And if you have Medicare, your testing supplies may also be covered. Arriva makes it simple. They bill Medicare directly. There are no upfront costs. And they deliver your supplies right to your door for free. With these new meters, there's no coding, you don't have to prick your fingers, and some of these meters even talk.
Your blood glucose reading is 122.
And if you call 1-800-284-9762, we will send you a free Betty Crocker Diabetes Cookbook filled with delicious recipes.
Call Arriva today. You'll be glad you did.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. Do you have breathing problems like asthma, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, or COPD? Then you may qualify for Medicare coverage of your respiratory medications. To see if you qualify, call Med4Home. Med4Home is a specialty pharmacy. They offer a wide variety of respiratory medications, which may be covered under your Medicare Part B benefits. Let Med4Home's team of experts work for you. They'll work directly with your doctor. They'll deliver right to your home and call you monthly for refills and to see how you're doing. Best of all, they'll handle the Medicare paperwork for you. It's so easy. And if you have supplemental insurance, there may be little or no out-of-pocket expense. Let Med4Home's team of experts work for you. Call Med4Home now to see if you qualify. For more information, call 1-800-321-0089. That's 1-800-321-0089.
Well, today on Capitol Hill, a special service is being held to remember an important milestone shortly after the birth of a new nation. John Jessup joins us live from Washington with a preview. And John, I understand the event specifically looks at America's first president as a man of prayer.
Lee, that's right. And April 30th, 1789, George Washington took the oath of office and set so many precedents for the new nation. For example, he started the 4-year terms, and people also believe that he was the one who started the phrase that we often hear during swearing-in ceremonies, "So help me God." Joining me now is Pastor Dan Cummins from Texas, who is the founder of Come Pray With Me and also the organizer of today's event, Washington, a Man of Prayer. Pastor Cummins, I wanted to ask you, what was the vision and what was the genesis behind this idea?
Well, 2 years ago, we are in a small town, about 4,000 people, Bridlewood Church in Bullard, Texas. We have about 35 families in our church, but we had a vision. We had a compassionate concern for America and where it was going, so we formed a little organization called Come Pray With Me. We began to organize churches in East Texas to come and pray with us for America. We did it in convention halls and football stadiums, and then we got involved with Doug Stringer's organization in Houston when they were part of Governor Perry's call for a solemn assembly there in Houston's Reliant Stadium, and we worked there diligently with them in Houston. And then about 3 months ago, I was concerned that we needed to have our elected members of Congress praying. We had plenty of people on the grassroots level praying. So I called my good friend and our representative, Congressman Louis Gohmert, and I said, Louis, we need to organize an event in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol for our members of Congress to pray. He said, let's do it. So along with his help and Speaker Boehnert's help, we've been able to organize this event called Washington, a Man of Prayer.
So give us an idea. What's on tap today? What's on the lineup?
Well, in about an hour, we're gathering and invited members of Congress to join us in Statuary Hall. We have guest speakers from all over America. Dr. Jim Garlow from San Diego, Dr. Alveda King, Bishop Harry Jackson, Doug Stringer, Dr. Tony Perkins, historian David Barton is going to come and start our evening off.
Pastor Cummins, you and I spoke earlier, and you had mentioned you felt that this is really something that goes beyond just praying for our leaders, and even though this is for members of Congress and their staff, that other people can get involved. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the event is already taking a life of its own. We're already having emails coming in from pastors and leaders of Christian schools asking us to make sure the event would be recorded so they could show it to their congregations and their school classes.
I also understand that Speaker Boehner approved this. Tell me how that came about.
Well, in order to use Statuary Hall, you have to have the approval of the Speaker of the House, and so Congressman Gomer is our congressional sponsor. We had to have a congressional sponsor, and then we had to have approval from the Speaker of the House to use that hall.
Well, it's a pretty big deal to get Statuary Hall. Congratulations to
Thank
you.
you, sir.
You can watch the entire event on our website, cbn.com. Even though it's for members of Congress and their staff, you can pray and join them on cbn.com. Lee, back to you.
Thank you, John. It sounds like a great event. We'll look forward to seeing a report on that tomorrow. Wendy?
Well, up next, standoff in the South China Sea. Why China and the Philippines both say they have rights to an area rich in one of the world's most valuable commodities.
John Mapes is 42, mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Believe it or not, this is a catheter. It's the new SpeedyCath Compact for women. Now available from Liberator Medical, with full Medicare and private insurance reimbursement. Stay tuned for an exciting free offer. But first, meet Julie.
You know when you leave the house and you say, okay, I have my phone, I have my keys, I have my wallet, I'm good to go? Now I always have to think of a catheter because I can't go without it. SpeedyCath came into my life and it is life-changing. They're tiny and thin and you can fit them in your back pocket. You can fit them anywhere you need them. This is a lipstick or lip gloss and this is the size of it. With this, you're only touching the outer plastic and you're never actually in contact with the catheter itself. You just really have to give a sample. That's all it needs is one sample and everyone's gonna want them.
Now, here's that free offer I promised. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free SpeedyCath Compact. Sample 6-pack. Shipping is free. 1-800-595-1446. 1-800-595-1446.
Philippine and U.S. officials met in Washington last week about a standoff between China and the Philippines. The dispute is over territories in the South China Sea that are rich in oil and gas.
Yes, I recently traveled to Manila, where China is warning the Philippines not to make this an international issue. Thousands of American and Philippine troops took part in a mock assault to retake a small island in the South China Sea. This year, the annual war games coincided with a tense standoff between China and the Philippines over contested areas in the South China Sea, mainly Scarborough Shoal. The shoal are a group of half-submerged rock formations believed to be rich in natural resources, along with prime fishing ground. The Philippines says the shoal belongs to them because it falls within its 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone as recognized by international law. Here in Manila, ships like the Philippine Coast Guard one behind me are being sent out to the disputed areas in the South China Sea. Both the Philippines and China want to lay claim to these areas known to be rich in natural gas and oil. But the recent war games between the Philippines and the U.S. have China a little nervous, and they're warning that tensions are likely to escalate. But government officials say while they're not looking for a fight, they must defend what they say belongs to them.
That's our exclusive economic zone. Why should we withdraw?
Christian leaders say this dispute should not be taken lightly.
We would like to claim what God has given us before the foundation of time. God has a plan for nations. Our weapon here, I see, will be prayer and fasting. We just have to pray. They have worship, but this nation can offer only worship to God.
Meanwhile, both nations continue to keep ships in the region to assert their sovereignty. The Philippines has called for UN intervention, but China has refused.
China wants to establish the rules. And what does that mean to all the nations who are interested in maintaining freedom of navigation and unimpeded commerce in the South China Sea. Obviously, there's a negative implication for everyone, not just the Philippines.
And up next, a 100-year-old inspiration. Texas grade schoolers celebrate the woman they affectionately know around the halls as Granny.
John Mapes is 42. Mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Believe it or not, this is a catheter. It's the new SpeedyCath Compact for women. Now available from Liberator Medical with full Medicare and private insurance reimbursement. Stay tuned for an exciting free offer. But first, meet Julie.
You know when you leave the house and you say, okay, I have my phone, I have my keys, I have my wallet, I'm good to go? Now I always have to think of a catheter because I can't go without it. SpeedyCath came into my life and it is life-changing. They're tiny and thin and you can fit them in your back pocket. You can fit them anywhere you need them. This is a lipstick or lip gloss and this is the size of it. With this, you're only touching the outer plastic and you're never actually in contact with the catheter itself. You just really have to give a sample. That's all it needs is one sample and everyone's gonna want them.
Now, here's that free offer I promised. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free SpeedyCath Compact Sample 6-pack. Shipping is free. 1-800-595-1446. 1-800-595-1446.
She's a 100-year-old granny without any grandchildren of her own.
Yes, so she's celebrating her birthday milestone with a second family, the kids at Central Elementary. Meet Miss Betty Turner. For 26 years, the kids in Pollock, Texas have affectionately known her just as Granny. Miss Turner never had children of her own, so she's devoted her entire life to volunteering at the local elementary school, acting as a role model for several generations.
I thank God that I'm still alive and able to get around.
She helped us learn a lot, and like once I mess up, she tells me what to do when I mess up a little.
Whenever she walks in, they're always, "Hey, Granny, good morning, Granny." Everybody wants to hug her, and she always has a hug to everybody.
She likes her way, and she's from the old school, and you do things a certain way.
I love these children. They all obey, so I like that.
That's great. Over 600 students filed through to wish their granny a happy birthday. Ms. Turner says volunteering is what continues to keep her young. We applaud her.
We do. She looks great. That's all for this edition of NewsWatch.
Good night.